Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in into the show as we look to recap the events this past week of the WWE Draft and reveal the full rosters for each brand. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into that, a massive appreciation from me to you guys from the WWE. Thank you guys for tuning in this past week. The turnout has been tremendous. The support from you, the WWE Universe, has been greatly appreciated. And we here in the WWE want to take the time to thank you guys properly. So once again, thank you guys for the massive support you have given us over this last week. With that being said, let's discuss the events of last week. Starting with day one of the draft on Monday Night Raw. We kicked things off with a triple threat match featuring all three women's champion, the women's champion Mandy Rhodes, NXT women's champion Mandy Rhodes, Raw women's champion Becky Lynch, and SmackDown women's champion Charlotte Flair did battle to determine their order for the men's pool in the draft. It was a great contest, but it saw Becky Lynch take out both Mandy Rhodes and finishing off beating Charlotte Flair to win and capture the first overall pick for Monday Night Raw. Well, before we get to find out who the picks were, we then had to figure out who the GM was, and it turned out to be the one and only Rattlesnake Stone Cold Steve Austin. Then he, in turn, with the first overall pick in the men's pool, would have selected none other than Drew McIntyre. Coming in second place was SmackDown, and it was revealed that Road Dogg Jesse James would be the new SmackDown general manager, and he would select none other than the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, as their first pick for SmackDown. And then it became time to reveal the GM for the brand new looking, brand new feel, brand new brand NXT 2.0, which it was become, or indeed would be, general manager once before, William Regal. And then he would make a big first pick selection for NXT, sending massive shockwaves around the universe by selecting none other than the Brute, Braun Strowman. He says he's got his eyes set on Keith Lee, and anyone else that wants to get in his way can get these hands. The rest of the men's pool would unfold as follows. The next pick for Raw would be Seth Rollins, followed by Bobby Lashley to SmackDown, Samoa Joe to NXT, Randy Orton to Raw, Edge to SmackDown, Cesaro to NXT, and to round out the final draft in the men's pool was Shinsuke Nakamura to Raw. But that wouldn't be all for Raw, as Triple H earlier in the week revealed that the number one overall pick for either Raw or SmackDown would face Roman Reigns for a title, either the WWE title or Universal Championship, depending on which brand had the first overall pick. He deemed that Raw would be the holder for WWE Championship and SmackDown would be the holder for the Universal Championship, and whichever person takes the title from Roman would then defend the other title on that brand. So Drew McIntyre, being the first overall pick, got the first crack at Roman Reigns this year, and we saw a great, highly contested matchup that saw Drew McIntyre in the driver's seats, but not until the shenanigans of the bloodline started to happen. The Usos would come in and try to help buy time for Roman Reigns, but they were foiled by Street Profits at the pass. Angelo Dawkins would take out Jey Uso from the ramp, while Montez Ford battled Jey in the crowd. That would buy Drew McIntyre enough time to set up his famous Claymore kick to look to put Roman Reigns away. But the Walrus himself, Paul Heyman, had other plans. He greatly distracted the referee, and that allowed the most shocking thing of the night happening, Seth Rollins entering the ring, super kicking Drew McIntyre, leading to Roman Reigns hitting the spear, and subsequently ending the night for Drew McIntyre and keeping Roman Reigns WWE Champion once again. A lot of questions needed to be answered there. What was the reason for Seth Rollins' interference? Is him and Roman Reigns back in cahoots, or is it an isolated incident? But I'll tell you one thing, come this next Monday Night Raw, I'm sure Drew McIntyre will be searching for answers. And that would segue into night 2 on SmackDown, as it was time to see who was selected for the women's pool. But we have to kick things off once again in a triple threat fashion as Intercontinental Champion Rey Mysterio, Raw United States Champion Sheamus, and NXT North American Champion Johnny Morrison would do battle to determine the draft order for the women's pool. And after a great high-flying, high-action matchup, we would see John Morrison take out Rey Mysterio to win the first overall pick for the women's pool, and that would give NXT that honor. And NXT in turn will then select none other than the boss herself, Sasha Banks, sending her back to where it all began, back to NXT 2.0. Then in second place was none other than SmackDown, and they would select Asuka heading to SmackDown. And third and final pick was Raw, and in a shocking turn of events, Stone Cold revealed that he would select none other than the badass Ronda Rousey is heading to Raw. And that sent another massive shockwaves to the whole women's division. Ronda Rousey is back, and she's back on Raw. And the rest of the draft in the women's pool will unfold as follows. Bayley would head to NXT. Now, we do have some graphical mix-ups here as I will break it down for you guys. Bianca Belair was actually drafted by SmackDown. Rhea Ripley drafted by Raw. Raquel Gonzalez is drafted to NXT. Nikki Cross to SmackDown. Shayna Baszler to Raw. And rounding out the draft to NXT 2.0 is Liv Morgan. The final night of the WWE Draft will be held in the most anticipated return of the NXT 2.0 arena. Triple H had a great introduction, bringing back NXT in a very brand new looking feel. And then NXT would host the tag team pool, which we see the order of SmackDown, Raw, and NXT. And with the first pick for SmackDown, they would select none other than the New Day. Raw would then select the Viking Raiders, and NXT would select Legado del Fantasma, followed by SmackDown taking Mustache Mountain, Raw selecting the Street Profits, and the last pick for NXT, another shocking announcement as they bringing back the popular tag team in the company at one time, Hit Row. And that's how last week unfolded with the WWE Draft. But that was not the full roster. And that was just only the top 10 men and women selected and the top 6 tag teams selected for the brands. Now it's time to reveal the full roster, starting with Raw. We already talked about the top 10 men and the top 3 picks for Raw. Let's talk about the last picks for them now. Starting with Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, then it was Pete Dunne, Kushida heading to Raw, LA Knight, Johnny Gargano making his most anticipated return, Austin Theory, and Robert Roode finishing out the men's roster for the Raw brand. Now into the women's pool, we will see Naomi heading to Raw, Sonya Deville, Carmella, and Natalya for the women's pool. And now, rounding out and finishing up the tag team division, we have British Strong Style and The Hurt Business are still together despite losing top dog Bobby Lashley. Now on to SmackDown's reveal. SmackDown will fill out the rosters as follows. Starting in the men's singles division, we have Finn Balor, The Miz, Dolph Ziggler, Ricochet, Tommaso Ciampa, Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin, Drew Gulak, and last but not least, Riddle. And in the women's division, we have Io Shirai, Lacey Evans, Mia Yim, and Toni Storm to finish out the women's division. And in the tag team division, we saw Alpha Academy and the newly formed team of Ali and Mansoor rounding out the tag team division. Now, last but not least, let's see who filled out the rest of the roster for NXT 2.0. In the men's pool, we will see Damian Priest be selected, followed by Dominik Dijakovic, Jordan Devlin. Santos Escobar is also going to be entering the singles division, as well as being a part of the tag team division. Then we see Cameron Grimes, Dexter Lumis, A-Kid, Rick Boogs, and Illinois Dragunov to round out the men's division. And in the women's division, we have Shotzi Blackheart, Indy Hartwell, Casey Catanzaro, Tegan Knox, and last but not least, Miss Dewdrop for the women's division. And in the tag team division, we would see Los Lotharios and Lucha Party being added to the tag team division for NXT. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is your roster review and draft recap. Do keep in mind that there could be more tag teams, more women and men added to each division as the year progresses, through free agency or surprising returns. There are numbers of superstars on the shelf due to injuries, and some of them might be making their returns throughout this year. We also could get new free agent signings, and don't forget, after all 4 major pay-per-views, there will be trade periods to make new waves for each brand. So plenty of new roster changes potentially coming in the weeks and months ahead. So ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like and comment. Let me know who's your favorite roster. Let me know what you think of each division. Let me know who you like to see back in the WWE. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Monday Night Raw will be the next show, and that will be coming up in a week's time right here on the channel. Until then, this is the Undisputed Warrior signing off.